Okay, well, thanks for joining us this morning. We weren't expecting the snow down here in Kansas, so that was a pleasant surprise. They didn't provide ice scrapers in the rental cars either, so we
We had a lot of adventures.
used our headrests. But anyway, so welcome to the meeting. I'm Tony Kellen with Wendell, and I'll let the rest of our team introduce. I'm a project manager. Susan?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Sherwood. I'm a principal at Wendell. I'm also the project manager for this project.
And I'm Scott Neal. I am the project architect on the project.
And I am Taryn Kroll. I am also an architect with Wendell Project.
And I'm Anne Frame Herzog. I'm with Shopke Consulting, and I also am a Lawrence resident. And I'm helping work with the engagement on the team.
Hey, the folks on the call, do they want to introduce themselves? I can see, we'll start on the bottom. We've got, well, Adam, go ahead. They probably all know you.
Sure. Adam Weigel, Transit and Parking Manager for the City of Lawrence.
And Sarah?
Sarah Hoogerhide. I'm an area manager for Greyhound Bus Lines.
Great, Sarah. And Michael?
Mike Vecchiano, new area manager for the area.
Okay, I didn't catch that. Area manager for?
It's Greyhound. I just started with them last week.
Okay. And who else do we have, Ann? Is there additional or?
I'm looking, Renee Hart.
We had Ava and Renee.
Renee or Renee?
Hi, I'm Renee Hart. I'm representing KDOT.
Thanks, Renee. And
John Moore has taken another position, so.
Okay.
Oh.
then Eva?
Hi, I'm Ava Steinman. I am community planner for Kansas and Missouri for FTA Region 7.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us. Gary?
Not sure if Gary can hear us, but he's project engineer with the City of Lawrence.
And then from our team also, we have Nate Will.
Hi, I'm Nate Will from HG Consulting. I'm the civil engineering lead for the project.
I think
I have another team of people that help me that are more local. I'm based out of Colorado, but we have two local guys that are working more on the project too.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, so we'll just start out. Thanks for joining us again. As you can see on the screen, this is stakeholder meeting number 7. So we did 6 meetings yesterday with stakeholders, plus the city and the university. So we've packed a lot in so far. Just to tell you a little bit about the project, Wendell, we're the design architecture firm. We're a full service A&E firm, and we've, as you've heard, have some local partners helping us on this as well from Kansas. And so we really got 2 distinct projects. We have the multimodal facility, which is at Crestline and Bob Billings near KU. That's going to be a approximately 5,000 square foot facility with 10 bus slips and then 2 additional bus slips for inter-city carriers, one of which would be Greyhound. Great to see Greyhound on the call. I will tell you, I'm personally very familiar with Greyhound because we were one of the first Midwest ticketing agencies that was actually operated out of a bus system in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And so we became ticketing agents and had some of the first online ticketing computers in 1992 in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So I was a Greyhound agency with our transit system for many, many years before I changed jobs in 2013. So I'm very familiar with Greyhound, the passenger service, the package service. We did both of those, and we did a lot of it out of our location. We were also a university town, so I'm sure that you probably have a similar profile of users in this area, especially with the university. So we're glad to have you on the call and to hear about how this can help with your service.
Great, thank you.
Yes. So really our goal is to hear what your concerns, your desires, your wishes would be for the intermodal center. And then secondly, because this multimodal is being located by the university, the scope of the downtown transferring operations in their hub system is going to change quite a bit. And so they're also doing a route restructuring study, which the studies both kind of inform each other in some respects, I would say. But our mission downtown is to look at city property that, and we've identified 5 sites, and we're whittling that down to 3, but looking at approximately 5 bus slips in the downtown area and some very basic amenities for transferring there. So we have,
I was just showing the sites.
yeah, Scott is doing some
Everything went
screen sharing.
black.
All right,
Oh, here we go. It's
we've
over
got a
here.
screen share. So here's
But it's there it is.
there's the Bob Billings site. And so we have a kind of a blank slate to work with there. So I think that's a good high level overview of the 2 elements of the project. And so what we want to do is let you do the talking, let you tell us what concerns, input, and so forth that you would have. And we're going to try to capture this in real time and store it to our virtual whiteboard. And then at the end of this process, we're going to consolidate all the input and comments that we receive. So with that, I'm going to ask if Adam has anything else he wants to add to bookend this, if I've missed anything, and then we'll let you folks share.
I don't have too much to add. I will be interested to hear from Sarah and Michael about what you like or don't like about your current location next to the library, and if it makes sense for you all to move to the new multimodal center. I think there's some easier access from the highway down Iowa to it, but just thinking about some of your other needs and what might be important from your end.
Sure. We always like the spaces in intermodal stations because of the connectivity. We do have a number of ways that we can organize connectivity with your local routing as well, if we take a look at those. But that is always our preference. I would say that I have no complaints on the library location that we have now. That's functioning well for us, but if we had the option to move into an intermodal, I think that would be our preference. We do hold a contract with the city, so we would need time to negotiate with them our exit from the library location, if we were speaking on this. And then the only other thing, if we're in a larger station, we would really be interested in maybe a dedicated slot for our ability to put on wayfind signage and information pertaining to our e-ticketing system. It's easier for us to route that way, but it's not an absolute necessity. So we could have those conversations as well.
Hey, Sarah, this is Susan
Yes.
Sherwood. Would Greyhound prefer to be at the downtown facility or out at the multimodal facility at Bob Billings?
So we do, most of our service product is dedicated to the students there, and we relate around the students. So we would want to be in a facility that's easily accessible to the students. If that was a transfer facility, that's understandable, but also if you have routes running to your intermodal that would make it easily accessible for the students, that could work as well. Either way, our main goal is to be accessible to the students there.
Gotcha. Second question for you. Are you still manning your ticket counters, or is everything e-ticketed right now in the future?
So during COVID, we reduced our ticket counters by quite a bit. We don't and haven't done any ticketing in Lawrence for quite some years. We do all e-services, and we can look at the numbers, but I don't see that we would want to move to a full servicing ticketing location unless our volume really changed out of Lawrence with the connectivity. But at this time, I would think we would continue to be looking at an e-stop.
Okay, so all we'd be looking at is a dedicated space within the station for a ticket machine or two or however many based on volume.
Generally, when I said dedicated slot, I was meaning for the bus parking.
Oh yeah. I mean, within the station for your e-ticket machines.
We have some ticketing machines, but we don't, in unstaffed locations, we don't really utilize those. And all of our ticketing is done through our online platform.
Okay, that's good.
So
necessarily have to give you much of anything, maybe information boards or nothing?
Yeah, we could do some wayfind signage. We could put a large board out where our dedicated slot is with information pertaining to how to access our e-ticketing or our call center. But I think internally we wouldn't need much space. Now, if we were to see a large increase in volume, or if the city was interested in taking on, commission sales or something along those lines, we might be interested in room to grow within Lawrence. But at this time, I think we're just looking for the bus slot itself and the e-ticketing to continue. Maybe we think down the line or if we have the volume to staff ticketing.
That's fine. That gives us a perfect idea of what we need to provide for space for you folks. So thank you.
And then as far as your bus slips, do you have a preference? I mean, a lot of times we're doing herringbone, but since it's only two, we could continue with the sawtooth that's already going to be there. Does it matter?
No, generally speaking, we tend to prefer not to back at any location where we're not fully staffed. So any kind of pull through, I think the sawtooths generally have pull through capability. So anything like that, that's just a safety concern when we don't have backers.
Sure. Yeah, with herringbone, that would just be more of a, you'd still pull forward. It would just be more of a, a striped area for people for luggage and boarding. But I can see where we just do sawtooth here.
And then I wanted to, not to interrupt the Greyhound discussion, but Megan joined us. Megan, do you want to introduce yourself with Senior
Resource Center?
Yeah.
Sure. Sorry, I was a little late. I'm Megan Poindexter. I'm the Executive Director for the Senior Resource Center. And I think there's folks maybe that are not from Lawrence or who are necessarily physically here, but we are, my window overlooks the Vermont Street transfer area. And we also provide specialized transportation, ADA compliant transportation to seniors throughout Douglas County. So that's my reason for attendance, I believe. That just because I love to help.
Megan, are you a 5310 provider then?
We are a 5130.
5130, okay.
So you own your buses, or are you guys in collaboration with the city bus system or separate?
We are separate. Yep, we are independent. We have a number of KDOT vans, and then we have a couple privately owned as well. And we're in the process of getting a couple of more KDOT vans.
Interesting.
So part of the invite list for this group was folks who Lawrence Transit collaborates with through the Regional Transit Advisory Committee. So that's where we are able to interface with a lot of the social service providers and other places throughout our community that provide their own transportation, but that tend to have some, potentially some overlapping clientele, different needs in people's daily lives.
We also do some just kind of behind the scenes support of folks as they're applying for access to use of the T lift while they're waiting for approval. Typically, we only provide services to people 60 or over, but individuals under 60 who have disabilities and are waiting for their T lift approval, we'll provide transportation to them in the meantime, but then also we'll fill in where needed if we need to. So.
Megan, do you envision your services providing like first mile, last mile from the intermodal facility potentially? Do you guys
say that again?
Do you envision your services providing like first mile, last mile services to maybe the intermodal for some of your clients who might want to go to Greyhound or to the express services or anything like that? And do you do that now currently?
That's a great question. We don't necessarily do that now. I don't think that we would have a problem with that. Because we're independent, we're pretty flexible and can look at things that our community need and address them as appropriate. So that'd be something I'd be interested in learning more about.
Okay.
Megan might have some good perspective on the downtown improvements as well, because as she mentioned, her folks are right across the street from our current location on Vermont. So there's some interfacing there. And we actually use one of our routes, use a little cutout that's in front of the Senior Resource Center as a layover place for buses heading southbound there. So yeah, Meg might have some thoughts on what we're doing downtown.
Yeah, that might be something you want to explore, I would think, because if we're bringing all these services into the multimodal at Bob Billings, there might be a big opportunity there for you to provide some longer range options for the senior community and the disabled community, quite frankly, to be able to leverage, either the express bus or Greyhound.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I hadn't thought about that, so I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, we'll just make sure, Adam, that when we are looking at the site layout, I'm bringing words in Scott's mouth behind me here. He'll be looking at the site layout to make sure that there is ample opportunity for, I'm assuming you guys are driving vans. Okay.
We have, right now, I think we've got 5 ADA vehicles, but 2 of them, one of them lives in Eudora and one of them lives in Baldwin because we serve the whole community or the whole county. And so there's a little bit of a sidestep there. And like I mentioned, we're in the process of getting 2 more ADA vehicles through KDOT, but one of them will continue to live in Baldwin.
Thank you.
So how many, maybe I missed that, how many van spots are we looking at there?
I would think, Adam, I don't know to step in here, but I feel like if we provided at least one flex bay where a van could have ADA accessibility, that would probably be sufficient.
Yeah, because the reason I'm asking is there was, Adam, you had requested a supervisor's van as well, or body on chassis, it sounded like, something along those lines. So maybe we'll just incorporate that into the parking.
Yeah, I think that's worth thinking about. I don't know if it overlaps. We talked briefly in other meetings about the kiss and ride space. Is that a place that's more flexible? So I think there's a couple different ways it could be, but I don't know how much other providers like SRC or others in the community might be laying over at the facility making that connection. I'm just not sure. I don't know how much of that currently exists downtown as far as connections to and from there. Most of Megan's service and others in the community are pretty door to door. I mean, people are getting to and from where they need to go. So probably good to think about. I just don't know how much volume we'll need of that type of service.
So Adam, I think one of the things that you should consider, and we can answer this question probably later today, is whether or not we want to add or flex one of the slips to be a microtransit and generalized microtransit slip, where you might have other providers that see this opportunity and have similar type of vehicles, where you don't need a full bus, bay at the facility, but you want to have, a ADA compliant type of space where they can get in and out of the facility and onto the platform and onto their connections. Because I feel like that's the big buzzword these days, right? Is microtransit and all of these different types of first mile, last mile services that are going to come to these facilities in the future. And right now we don't currently have that program. And that's fine, but this is the time to flush that out if we want to do that or not. Just something for you to consider.
Yep, that's a good discussion to have. And I think agency run microtransit is perhaps a part of our solution with route redesign that is overlapping with this. I think we envisioned one of the 10 bus bays we talked about, one or more being for that type of service. So yeah, we can continue that thought process.
Okay.
I might share, I've been texting with some folks from the K10 Connector, which is our other intercity bus service that connects University of Kansas to Johnson County Community College towards Kansas City. So they're not able to be on the call today, but at least got a little information via text. Just some concerns from their end. It's just route timing. You know, as they weave through campus, I think they're interested in locating at the new facility and using commuter bay, but they'll be interested in how that affects their timing getting in and out of the city. I imagine it would be cleaner and better at the facility, but something to think about.
Is that the same as the Kansas City Express bus that we talked about?
Yeah, there's one bus that connects Lawrence to Kansas City, and it's the K10 Connector.
We've been calling it the JOCO.
The JOCO
one, because it goes to Johnson County. That's the one that goes to Johnson County Community College.
Yeah, so it used to be named the Joe. A lot of the services in Kansas City came under the Ride KC umbrella. So Ride KC Transit, the KCATA Transit Authority kind of pulled all these services together from Johnson County and Independence, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. And I think at that time, K10 Connector was the new name for that.
Thank you for the clarification. Just want to make sure we're not confusing anything.
It's not another one, it's the same one.
Yeah, it happens, so that's okay though.
I guess just while I'm thinking about it and your questions, Susan, just made me think of other services beyond the social service providers in town that it might be a good connection point at like a flex bay. I think about there's pretty limited services, but there are a couple services of like airport shuttles that connect people to Kansas City International. There are a handful of larger apartment complexes in town that have their own vans, and we tend to see them at our bus stops around town. Perhaps it makes sense. We'll have to think about if we want to allow access for that type of thing, but that's something to consider for the flex bay idea.
I think the even in some of our projects out in Phoenix, we're finding that the ride hail, the kiss and ride is really morphed into a larger programmatic flex area for people because if you think about, kiss and ride used to be somebody dropping off, and now it's just been overtaken by ride hail services and what have you. So I think that's something we should, expand in this just for the future, because I think that's, like you said, there's a variety of vehicles that are probably going to want to access the site, but mixing them with your fleet is still something we want to shy away from.
Right.
Because that's just a safety thing.
Right. Yeah, like the Ubers and
even like the apartment shuttles.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, just look at airports that just showed up so quickly that now they're modifying parking garages for 100 ride hail.
Right. Yeah, go to Minneapolis Airport to the Uber line, right? So yeah, I think that's a really good point because one of the things we really need to pay attention to, Adam, is the separation of pedestrians, cars, and buses in the circulation on site, especially at the multimodal facility.
Well, thanks.
I see we've had Linda join the call. I don't know if Linda wants to introduce herself.
Let's join us. Linda Thompson.
Do you want to introduce?
Everybody stand it away.
Our lights shut off every 10 minutes, right?
I saw Linda unmute for a second, but I don't know, Linda, if you can hear us or if you might be able to introduce yourself.
We have a new guest. Linda Thomason, can you hear us?
There might be audio challenges, but Linda, it might be interesting if you wanted to introduce maybe through the chat, so we know who's with us and can maybe help address concerns that way.
Let's forget about that.
In the meantime, I don't know if Ava or Renee from federal or state perspective have different thoughts on this type of center, just from your perspective.
Well, this is Renee, and I'm just really pleased that Greyhound is a part of this conversation. And I don't have a lot to add. I think this is a lot of good things to think about. On that separation of cars and buses, I was thinking of e-scooters and bike share, and I didn't know if that was planned to be a part of this, and if it would, that would be another consideration to avoid conflicts with the buses.
Do you have scooter services around this area? I haven't seen any.
Well, it's a little.
We do not. There. We were gearing up for a pilot launch of scooters in spring of 2020. So pandemic hit. Pandemic hit, as well as a prior bike share operator in town left a pretty bad taste in the community's mouth when they disposed of around 300 bicycles, taking them to the dump. So there were some complications with us getting that off the ground. It was pretty critical that scooters would be able to be used on both city property and university property for proper ridership. And the university had really shied away from that being a priority as the pandemic continued and budget issues came up, and just the typical safety concerns about the operation of scooters on sidewalks and in the street, and us not having a fully built out, bike lane system or protected bikeway system. So it's been put on hold a couple of times. There was thought that maybe we'd launch a pilot this spring. Again, with everything continuing to be a challenge both budgetarily and through the pandemic, I think it remains on hold kind of until both the city and the university are ready to move forward. There's also not, the first time it came around, there was some political pressure or interest from KU students. And, it was included in student senate platforms as different groups of students were running for those governance leadership positions. There's also not that currently. So there's not a lot of pressure from the community or from students right now to say, please give us scooters. So staff is kind of ready and willing, but there are challenges to implementation, enforcement of proper rules and parking and all that. So it's kind of out there, but not being implemented yet.
We should maybe program some space for future potentially.
It absolutely makes sense in our efforts to put bike parking on the site for that to be inclusive of dockless vehicles or something that would just attach to the bike racks that are there.
Yeah, what we know about the scooters, if you don't plan for them, they really do become litter. They just get dropped everywhere. So I think we'll add that. And we are going to have a significant long-term and short-term bike area. So that would seem to make sense that that's included there.
Saw Linda put in the chat that she's just here to listen. I guess, Linda, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat, if you have any thoughts about the housing authority's need or desire or future desire to interface with the site with your vehicles, would it be helpful to have a place to plug in a housing authority van as you're moving people around town, or just any thoughts about how the housing authority might or might not interact with the new site out at Bob Billings and Crestline or downtown?
Adam, this is Renee again. And I was just thinking about, recently I've been watching a lot of webinars where these facilities have been used for vaccination sites. And so I was just thinking about having some type of multi-purpose space just for future, if that need arises, and how it can be used.
I'm sorry, Renee, are you from KDOT or from FTA?
I'm from KDOT.
I'm trying to keep everybody straight here, sorry. I can only see some people on the
So what
screen.
was the question? I'm sorry.
Vaccination site multipurpose spaces. So what we're seeing right now in other areas of the country is, yes, they are using multimodal sites for vaccination, and or they're using multimodal sites to move people to a third area for vaccinations, utilizing the transit system. What we are seeing is that they're generally doing it outdoors, or they're doing it in the waiting area spaces. But we could certainly look at making a multi-purpose area. It might stretch the program a little bit more than what is programmed right now. But that's what we are currently seeing from other transit agencies. And I don't know, Adam, if you guys are doing any of that right now or not.
We have routes that serve the couple of mass vaccination sites that we have been using in town, the fairgrounds and the hospital. So that's typically how we've been involved in getting people to and from those type of sites. It's an interesting thought. I think when we toured Kansas City's facility last week, and they had some space that they might do future improvements on. It was kind of an open space. It's an intriguing thought. I don't know what you don't know. What you might have in a space like that. I hadn't put much thought into that.
I did want to mention real quick, earlier when I had said room to grow, and you're talking about multi-purpose sites or something that might give you some growth space. I also want to make it clear that Greyhound's been able to reduce our footprint to very small kiosks, that even when we were talking about full service sales. Generally speaking, the only thing that has prohibited us from moving into intermodal stations has been storage space for our shipping or GPX. So we were recently looking at an intermodal station in Missouri, but we could have created the kiosk space in order to sell and service our customers, but there just wasn't any remaining space on site where we could have put up, a rack to hold some of our shipping there. And so we had to choose another location. So having a little additional room for the future, for time to grow, I think is a wise thought.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sarah, do you have any departures that are outside the operating hours, arrivals, departures outside of their normal operating hours?
Currently, right now, we run 4 services between, our first one comes in at 6:40 a.m. and then our last one departs at 11:40 p.m.
Because it's all e-ticketed.
Right, but I'm talking about for facility security, passenger comfort and waiting. If the facility is closed down, those are always issues that we had.
What was the last one?
11:40 p.m.
Yeah, so that's when they're on demand. Yeah, it's really 6 to 8, then 8 to 6.
Right.
Yep.
And we don't have any dwell time currently in Lawrence, so there's not a whole lot of maneuverability because we are we do make those schedules so that they are functional for layovers at our major terminals like Kansas City or Dallas. And that way, if they're traveling a longer distance, they don't have long layovers at our transfer hubs. There can be some adjustments in timing, and we would certainly take, we would take any suggestions that you had into account. I will say that we bid out our runs quarterly. So although most of the time our subsidy routes stay pretty close to the timing, there could be adjustments in those timing. I'd say, 15 minutes to a half an hour here and there, depending on other routes that change. But of course, we would happily keep you informed of those changes and work with you through that.
Sarah, do you have like real-time information on your vehicles that we could display somewhere on site on a sign or a app or anything?
Yes, absolutely. We have bus tracker services on our website, and then we also have a third party that we work with e-vendors to display our schedule on site. Generally speaking, if the display is static, we have to have someone physically make the change to the schedule when our quarterly bids come up. But we have a number of locations with some sort of e-signage, and we do have a bus tracker system as well, right on our website.
Oh, good. So we can do real time information. Yeah, that's pretty common these days. Renee, I'm not sure on how much you delved into the traffic situation out at the Bob Billings Parkway site, but it is a 4-lane highway with median, and I know we're going to have to do a traffic study of some form. Would you be the contact to coordinate the ideas we have in our head about potential traffic calming and or other issues?
Yes, you can. Yes, we can be in touch, and then I can get you in touch with the right department.
Okay, yeah, because I think that we need to have that conversation probably sooner rather than later, because I think there might be a cost impact potentially, and we probably want to understand from KDOT's perspective what our limitations are within that intersection area.
Certainly.
Adam, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, Bob Billings is not a state highway. I mean, it's a big road. Iowa certainly is, but that's not an intersection we'll be at. So I think a lot of that coordination will also be with the city.
I think it's just basically with the city, but not with KDOT.
This will impact Iowa. Iowa is a state route, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Bob Billings is not. So as long as we avoid doing anything in Ohio or Iowa, we're good.
Yeah, Bob Billings is our highway. It's not KDOT's highway.
Okay.
We would certainly, appreciate being kept in the loop with anything.
Sure.
So Adam, then we can do the traffic calming.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, wasn't that a roundabout we were talking about?
We're going to shut down the road. You have to go around it now. Peds only.
We have been very impressed with the high level of roundabouts that we've encountered since we entered Kansas. I have to tell you, I'm a big fan of roundabouts.
Also, Megan just put it posted here too, and I put it up here about people have concerns about people who have used power wheelchairs, and they need places to plug in and charge up their chair. We've had that noted in a couple of other things about having charging stations for electronics, but other things.
Yeah, I think these days it's probably just a standard.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure it's enough coordinated spots though for that use.
Yeah, the right locations, accessibility.
So I think is it Eva? It's here from FTA. We've heard from
Yeah, I'm here from FTA.
Is it Ava or Eva?
Ava.
Ava, thank you for clarifying that. Well, from your perspective, is there anything we should be thinking about, looking at, concerned about relative to what we're talking about here today?
You know, I think a lot of really good ideas are coming up here and you have a lot of great partners at the table. And so one thing that I was kind of thinking of as we were talking about with the multi-purpose space, you know, not necessarily a separate room or anything to a facility, but those spaces can be good for public involvement too, having something at the facilities to have different setups for public meetings and input kind of thing. So that's just something to add to that discussion. But no, like I said, I think you've got a lot of really great people at the table and having good discussions here.
They bring up a great comment there, because we have a project that's very similar to this in Lynchburg, Virginia, and it's about the same size facility. In fact, we kind of featured it in our proposal to the city, and so they're a little bit familiar with it, but we took and added a second floor, about 2,500 square feet, for that very purpose, for space use. Obviously, Adam doesn't have the budget for that, for a second floor, but that, you know, these spaces make for some really good uses for those types of things.
Yeah, what you're seeing now is the move towards not, you know, a congregation of spaces, you know, more so of sharing the spaces, and making it functional as far as a layout to be truly multi-purpose. And, you know, that's obviously our goal, because these things might change. Like right now you're talking COVID vaccination sites. That might not be the concern here in, you know, 5 years. It could be something potentially different, public meetings, you know, things of that nature. So I think the flexibility is always key in this type of facility, and obviously something that will make sure that is forefront in any sort of space that's provided.
Yeah, we've seen another element is travel training, you know, having space to do travel training right at your intermodal.
I think the problem with the second floor is you're going to have to add an elevator to be ADA accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, no, I get that, Gary. I was just saying that we've definitely seen that type of public meeting space.
Yeah, the momentum also becoming a destination for all kinds of activity within the community. So it's definitely being more so thought of as that destination stop, not just for the actual transportation, but the needs of the community coming together.
We are time-wise, do we want to talk about downtown at all? Because everything's going to work. Is there anything we want to talk about downtown?
Yeah, does anybody have downtown? I know the focus has been the multimodal, and probably for good reasons, but we've got about 5 to 7 minutes left before we need to transition to the next meeting.
Just have one other issue, maybe wanted to ask Greyhound's thoughts. So in discussions with Brad Allen, the library director downtown, I know they interface with a lot of folks who use Greyhound, and they did say that a couple of challenges are people who need to print out tickets or buy a ticket with cash and have to go somewhere else to do that. We are exploring the possibility of having like a customer service staff and window there that could maybe do that type of work. But that's not firm yet. And I guess in the event that we're not able to staff anything, are there other solutions for people who are trying to get a ticket with cash? Are there kiosks or anything else if someone doesn't have a smartphone that we would want to think about and getting people connected to and from Greyhound?
Sure. I think that this is a multi-part answer. So first and foremost, we've, through DOT standards and the e-logging of our driver's hours, we've moved our ticketing systems strongly into the electronic realm. Now drivers, very recently, within the past few months, they have the capability to look up ticket holders and put them on the manifest, even if they're not holding a ticket. So they would just need an ID. So that's been our recent improvement in that, so that if they are purchasing tickets online and are unable to print them, we still have access to be able to serve them in the community. We love ticket sales. They do tend to generate, like cash on-site sales tend to generate more ridership in general. It's just a weighing of the cost to sell at the location itself. So, you know, there's the benefit, of course, to the expansion of the ridership and people's ability to take it. But we also have to keep in mind how much that costs Greyhound compared to the amount of ridership that we do have. With that being said, we do have some cash sale options. We work with Ace, Ace Cash Sales and 7-Eleven. And those, when we do have partnerships with those to purchase tickets in cash at those locations, it's not a widely used program, and I would have to check to see if we have anything available in your region for that. And I can get that information back to you if we do have something locally or not. And if not, we can look and see if we can reach out to 7-Elevens or something in your area to access that. But it's not a widely used program. You're still accessing the ticket online, building the ticket online, and then going to one of these locations to purchase the ticket in cash.
Yeah,
so,
if you might be able to send us that info. I think
sure.
It's my understanding there's some place that people do that. I don't know the volume, but I think Brad mentioned there's somewhere along 6th Street that people have to travel to when they're using.
Yeah, and I will get you. I'll get you whatever addresses are available in the region, and you can look at it online. And when you're building the ticket, it does give you a cash sale option if there are stuff in the region. So it is available, and potentially, if that was the route we were going, we could certainly include some of that information on our signage or something along that line. We do, you know, it is imperative if we don't have a cash sales location, that we try to take as much work off. And I know that in the library, Brad had seen a number of passengers that needed to print tickets and otherwise. And so we do focus on some of those issues for our e-ticketing to try to take some of that pressure off of the local staffing. But if you do have ticketing there and you want to have a conversation about picking up commissions on our sales, I would be happy to have that conversation anytime.
Sarah, I want to just mention one other thing too, because in my former agency, we had a pretty robust package delivery system. Mm-hmm. And the space requirements for the storage racks that we had for Greyhound were not significant, I would say. We did have off-hour key access, electronic security system for the drivers to be able to get those packages. It worked really well. Yep. It was commissionable sales. We were a regional medical center in central Minnesota, so we had a lot of surgical tools that were shipped between companies that provide specialized tools for hip surgeries, knee surgeries, things like that. And so I don't know what your package sales are like, but that would be a thing you might want to explore too, Adam, because the space requirements and the revenue gained can be kind of interesting just depending on the location.
Mm-hmm. And we still offer what we call lock boxes, either smaller boxes or even the size of a storage shed that you would see at Home Depot, where we have universal locks that the drivers can access. However, we don't offer any GPX services at unstaffed locations. So the only possibility for shipping services to come in to Lawrence would be to have a ticketing counter or services through that.
All right, so it's exclusive. That's good to know.
And I guess I would like to touch too that we would be much more likely to have ticketing if we were to work with the city or a pre-positioned ticketing situation rather than bring in our own contractors to do the sales, because that raises our costs quite a bit. So we would be a lot more along the lines to work with the city on those ticketing services. That would be a lot more likely.
Okay, so we have just a couple of more minutes to wrap up. I want to again just say, does anybody have any input on the downtown transfer locations or just that service down there, concerns or feedback?
This is Renee at K10, and I was just thinking, would you be moving away from the library altogether with this center?
I think based on the locations that we're looking at, there's a high probability that we would be not right next to the library in the future.
I was wondering, parking maybe for a mobile library bus or some type of library service.
Yeah, I think right now the stage we're at, we're drilling down. We had 5 sites that we're looking at. We think that that's just based on what we've seen so far is quickly narrowing to 3 viable sites where we can really do the program. And none of those 3 sites are next to the library.
They're very close. They're just a block away.
There's one that's a block away from the library.
But I think Adam wasn't one of the sites earlier in the parking lot right near the library, but that was when the scope of the project was much larger.
Yeah, one of our challenges currently, Renee, is just that being immediately adjacent to buildings with businesses in them. So some of the areas we're looking at are parking lots that are near. There are a couple that aren't near the library, but not immediately adjacent. So hopeful that people might still be able to get to and from the library, but maybe it becomes less of a during layover visit sort of thing and more intentional from the transit area to the library and back.
Okay, with that, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes to transition to our next meeting and get people on. So thank you so much. If you do have future or something that comes up in your mind, you can certainly, I think with the appointments that you do have Ann's email. We'll put that in the chat as well. Ann at shockeyconsulting.com. And feel free to reach out to her and we'll consolidate any additional comments we might get over the next few days into this report. So thank you so much for being here today.